Don't even, don't even keep it on silent mode.
A proud moment for me today as I, Varsha Rokde, Secretary of the Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa, on behalf of the International Council of Jurists, National Human Rights Commission of India, All India Bar Association, and Indian Council of Jurists, welcome His Excellency, the Vice President of India, Shri M. Hamid Ansari, His Lordship, Dr. Justice K.G. Balakrishnan, Chairman, National Human Rights Commission of India, His Lordship, Justice V.S. Shirpurkar, Judge, Supreme Court of India, Honorable Sir James Mancham, Founding President of the Republic of Seychelles, Honorable Lord Sir Justice Mark Potter, former Head of Family Justice for England and Wales, Honorable Mr. C.L. Rola, Member of Parliament, Vice President, Indian Council of Jurists, along with Honorable Dr. Adish Aggarwala, President, International Council of Jurists, and Chairman, All India Bar Association. As also the dignitaries of the dais, ladies and gentlemen, for the International Conference of Jurists on International Terrorism and Presentation of International Jurists Award 2010, as also National Day Award 2010. An American poet once said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." I'm sure Dr. Adish Aggarwala, the mastermind behind this conference, has made us all come alive to the need for promoting administration of justice, legal awareness, and the rule of law. May I now request Dr. Adish Aggarwala to present the welcome address.
Thank you. Honorable Vice President of India, Mr. Hamid Ansari, Honorable Chairperson of the National Human Rights Commission of India, Dr. Justice K.G. Balakrishnan, Honorable Judge of Supreme Court of India, Mr. Justice V.S. Shirpurkar, distinguished awardees of the International Jurist Awards and National Law Day Awards, Your Excellencies, the High Commissioners and Ambassadors of different countries, Honorable Judges, Members of Parliament, bar leaders, bureaucrats, distinguished delegates from different parts of the world, respected law teachers, media persons, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all. On behalf of the International Council of Jurists, National Human Rights Commission of India, All India Bar Association and Indian Council of Jurists, I extend a warm welcome to all of you. We are fortunate that the conference is taking place under the blessings of the Honorable Vice President of India, Mr. Hamid Ansari. Mr. Ansari is a scholar of eminence, as is renowned in India and abroad for his extraordinary ability as a statesman. It fills my heart with pleasure and pride to meet distinguished personalities from different walks of life from across the globe. The world is passing through a critical stage and has witnessed an unprecedented spate of terrorist attacks. Each new incident of terrorism brings the issue of terrorism right to the forefront. Terrorism is a global problem and international collaborated efforts are needed to tackle it. In this scenario, the law is expected to play a definite and positive role in strengthening national security. It must rise to the occasion and make it conducive for an integrated effort to curb terrorism. This bestows a special responsibility on us jurists to take a fresh look at the present legal structure and examine where there is any need for change. It is with the single objective of an empowered and united world, free of war and terrorism, that we have gathered here today. The jurists of the entire world are of the view that we should take all steps to weed out terrorism and make the world a better place to live with peace and harmony. I sincerely believe that our earnest endeavor will bear fruit. I am happy to inform all of you that our next conference on the subject will be held in London on 21st and 22nd May and in Washington, D.C. on 26th and 27th May 2011. Thank you.
It's my honor to now request the eminent statesman, distinguished personality, a man of noble spirit and humanitarian principles to address the gathering. His Excellency, the Vice President of India, Shri Hamid Ansari, to do the honors, please.
Honorable Justice K.G. Balakrishnan, Dr. Adish Aggarwala, Honorable Justice Sirputkar, Sir James Mancham, Sir Justice Mark Potter, Shri Ruala, distinguished guests, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to inaugurate this conference of jurists on international terrorism and human rights. You have a packed schedule of wide-ranging deliberations on key issues that impact critically on our daily lives. I commend this distinguished audience of jurists, academics, and legal experts who have gathered here today to discuss these themes. It is also topical to discuss human rights, yesterday being the Human Rights Day. It was on this day in 1948 that the UN General Assembly adopted and proclaimed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It remains the universal and fundamental recognition of the fact that the inherent dignity and the equality of inalienable rights of all members of the human family are the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. It is also appropriate that this year, the Human Rights Day is dedicated to the human rights defenders who play a vital role in protecting human rights of others, facing personal risks to them and their families. It is perhaps a statement of our times that all nations and people have been affected by the global menace of terrorism. It is not only an insult and it is not only an assault on human decency and a negation of fundamental human rights, but also knows no boundaries and poses serious threats to human rights. Terrorism has also come to represent a threat to international peace and security, especially when terrorists are armed, financed, and backed directly or indirectly by governments or their agencies. International terrorism is an international crime threatening the integrity and the political and social fabric of states. Its sinister element is vastly magnified in its impact when it is enmeshed with drug trafficking, arms proliferation, international financial crimes, and generic forms of extremism, fundamentalism, separatism, and intolerance. Our globalized world is characterized by enhanced levels of resort to violence by state and non-state actors within and across borders. Global threats to peace and security necessitate coordinated and global responses. We therefore believe that the adoption of a comprehensive convention against international terrorism would provide a solid legal basis for the fight against terrorism. However, we must also note that legal systems in many countries have resorted to doctrines of necessity to incorporate exceptional and extraordinary legislation to deal with this surge of violence. The challenge for governments and legal systems is to deal effectively with violence within the framework of normal laws and respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. Ladies and gentlemen, there is one other important aspect relating to the subject matter of this conference. The enjoyment of human rights is closely related to the prevalence of good governance norms. In India, we remain committed to democratic governance, inclusive development, and the implementation of the rule of law. This commitment has been challenged in practice by departures from good governance manifest through corruption and the deleterious influence of money power. Corruption has inhibited the enjoyment of human rights, has contributed to inequalities in income, status, and opportunities, and thus thwarted human development of our citizens. We must recognize that good governance without any trace of corruption is also a human right. Friends, human rights today are increasingly discussed in the context of violence, use of force, and terrorism. The idea that the central objective of human rights is to empower people through human development does not find adequate mention in contemporary debates. It is only when the capacities of citizens are fully developed, their choices widened, and freedoms expanded that human rights would have achieved their objective. I thank the organizers of this conference for inviting me to this function, and I wish you all success in your deliberations. Jai Hind.
We thank you, sir, for the successful initiation of this program, so essential for our nation's health. Our heartfelt gratitude for the eloquent address and guidance. Honorable Vice President had to leave due to some urgency. May I request Professor Shimon Shetrit Professor, International and Public Law, Hebrew University of Jerusalem, to grace the dais, please. May I also request Mr. Raghunath Kesavan, President, Malaysian Bar Council, also to come to the dais. I also request His Lordship Justice Dilip R. Deshmukh, Chairperson, Company Law Board, to come to the dais. And I also request Mr. Vivek Tankha, the Additional Solicitor General of India, to please grace the dais. Ashish? May I now request Mr. S. Prabhakaran, Vice Chairman, All India Bar Association and Tamil Nadu Advocates Association, to say a few words, please.
Honorable Vice President of India, Dr. Justice K.G. Balakrishnan, Chairman, National Human Rights Commission of India, Honorable Mr. Justice V.S. Sirpurkar, my esteemed friend Mr. Adish Aggarwala, respected Mr. Justice Mark Porter, and Mr. James or Mancham, respected Mr. C.L. Rula, the respected dignitaries of the dais, ladies and gentlemen. We all have assembled here to participate in the International Conference of Jurists on International Terrorism, organized by the International Council of Jurists, National Human Rights Commission of India, All India Bar Association, and the Indian Council of Jurists. We all know about the terrorism strikes at the root of the country's unity and integrity of every nation. It cuts across the territorial barriers, and every country, and in India particular, is a victim of terrorism. Only 2 days back, we all witnessed a terrorist attack at Varanasi, where 18-month-old child lost its life. Therefore, a rude effort is needed to tackle the menace of terrorism. People don't expect mere words from the government. They want concrete action so that the terrorist activities are nipped in the bud and common man is saved from fear of terrorism. The International Council of Jurists and the National Human Rights Commission of India, All India Bar Association, Indian Council of Jurists have been playing a yeoman in the cause of protecting the human rights of citizens. The conference will throw light on the various dimensions of terrorism and will make an attempt to evolve a strategy and solutions for the government to deal with this problem more effectively. I hope the participants with their vast experience and knowledge will throw the light on the different aspects of terrorism and native of this conference to grand success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It is said, accomplishments are easiest when we work the hardest, and it is hardest when we work the easiest. We now begin with felicitating all such accomplished persons by presenting the International Jurists Award 2010. As per the decision of the jury, International Jurists Award 2010 is being presented to the following dignitaries. I firstly call upon Sir James R. Mancham, the founding president of Republic of Seychelles, to please come on the dais. This award is being presented to him in recognition of the pivotal role played by him in promoting peaceful settlement of international disputes. He is a visionary statesman who has influenced many world leaders with his contemporary philosophy and outlook. The International Jurists Award 2010 also goes to Honorable Lord Igor Judge, Lord Chief Justice of England and Wales. May I request Honorable Sir Mark Howard Potter, Head of Family Justice for England and Wales, to receive the award on behalf of Chief Justice of England and Wales. This award is being presented to Lord Igor Judge for his outstanding contribution to fair and efficient administration of justice during his distinguished judicial tenure. He has made a lifelong contribution to the cause of justice. The International Jurists Award 2010 is also being presented to Mr. Raghunath Kesavan, President, Malaysian Bar Council. This award is being presented to him for his enormous service to the bar and his deep involvement and conscientious engagement in the maintenance of the highest standards of professional ethics. He has canvassed for change and for clear articulation of the principles and strategic directions necessary for the legal profession to thrive. The International Jurists Award 2010 also goes to Mauritius Bar Association. Mr. Rishi Pursem, Senior Advocate, will be receiving the award on behalf of the Mauritius Bar Association. This is for the recognition of pivotal role played in the affairs of the legal fraternity throughout the world. The association has consistently displayed a high degree of professionalism and effectiveness in protecting the interests of the bar. The International Jurists Award 2010 also goes to Professor Shimon Shetreat, Professor International and Public Law, Hebrew University of Jerusalem. This award is being presented to him for maintenance of the highest standards of legal education. He has played a seminal role in improving the educational system to cope with the increasing complexity of legislative and regulatory framework and the challenges posed by a shrinking world. We shall now pose for a group picture with the recipients of the International Jurists Award 2010. Please come. Thank you. May I now request Honorable Lord Sir Justice Mark Potter, former Head of Family Justice for England and Wales, to address the gathering, please. Mr. Mark Potter to speak.
Justice Balakrishnan and fellow justices and jurists, I was delighted as the representative of Lord Chief Justice of England and Wales, Lord Judge, to receive the award of this conference for his contribution to the administration of justice on his behalf. I should like, if I may, to convey his very great regret that he's unable to receive it in person and to express to the conference in his own words his gratitude for the high honour which it represents. It's only the extremely pressing, and as I can say, though he would not, the arduous and burdensome nature of his duties in the United Kingdom which have prevented his attendance. He's asked me particularly to say that he has long admired the contribution of the judiciary of India, and particularly the decisions of the Supreme Court, in upholding the legal and human rights of Indian citizens in a number of what may be described as tough and imaginative decisions, which have on a number of occasions succeeded in deriving specific and practical human rights, including rights to environmental protection, from a constitution framed in broad terms. Now, we live, of course, in an age where there's an increasing national and international recognition of certain fundamental human rights, a number of which are embodied with a greater or lesser degree in many of the by the constitutions, the domestic constitutions of many of the major states in the world, as well as in various international treaties and other instruments to which most of such states are parties, including, of course, the United Kingdom. One starts with the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 and proceeds, so far as the UK is concerned, to the European Convention on Human Rights, now incorporated into English law by our own Human Rights Act 1998. This has raised the necessity for our courts to examine closely and afresh the adequacy and the boundaries of a number of the rights and liberties hitherto recognised only in common law as freedoms within our unwritten constitution. In the face of the increasing threat of terrorism worldwide, and in particular in the United Kingdom, a number of those decisions have related to the treatment of those suspected of terrorist activity and the extent to which they may be detained and tried or deported for their activities or otherwise controlled by methods and measures which fall short of the standards traditionally observed in our normal criminal processes of arrest, detention and trial. This is, of course, a problem facing all the great common law jurisdictions across the world. In this connection, so far as the UK is concerned, the lot of presiding over the House of Lords in a number of difficult cases fell to Lord Bingham of Cornhill, Lord Phillips, our present senior law lord's predecessor, and many of those here today will, I'm sure, have learnt of Lord Bingham's recent death after only a short illness, early in his retirement and still at the height of his powers and activities. It's a tragic loss to the world of jurisprudence. And in this respect, Lord Judge has asked that I should say a few words about Lord Bingham, and in particular about the institution which has only recently been formed in his name under the auspices of the British Institute of International and Comparative Law, and which may yet be unknown to this audience. It's called the Bingham Centre for the Rule of Law. It will take as its starting point and be based on the content of a book published earlier this year, simply under the name Tom Bingham, and entitled The Rule of Law. It's a book which has not only been widely applauded among lawyers, but also is an articulation for the intelligent layman of the ingredients and importance of the rule of law, as that phrase falls to be redefined in modern conditions. It remains based on the concept made famous and elaborated by Professor Dicey, who first used the phrase the rule of law in his book, An Introduction to the Study of the Law of the Constitution in 1885. And Tom Bingham's work has been described by our Prime Minister as prescribed reading for his ministers. Dicey identified three aspects of the rule of law as he perceived it in the common law tradition, namely the supremacy of the law over government power, equality before the law, and enforcement before the courts. Civil law tradition had generally focused less on the judicial process and more on the nature of the law-based state. Lord Bingham has encapsulated the core of the idea of the rule of law as being that all persons and authorities within the state, whether public or private, should be bound by and entitled to the benefit of laws publicly and prospectively promulgated and publicly administered by the courts. He elaborates this into three short 8 principles. First, the law must be accessible and as far as possible intelligible, clear and predictable. Second, questions of legal right and liability should ordinarily be resolved by application of the law and not by the exercise of a discretion, ministerial or otherwise. Third, the law should apply equally to all, except to the extent that objective differences justify differentiation. Fourth, the law must